All right. Welcome to episode 300 of Together BHA. We are feeling festive today, hence the massive amount of production value we have behind me with our festive ideas. So, Robinho, welcome. You have been around for quite some time on this Together BHA venture. Obviously, we made waves in the Albion sphere with the Gus Poyet interview before Andy Naylor, before anybody else. We got there first. Before
we did.
BBC.
And genuine exclusive.
It really was.
When was that? When was that? 20? Was that around COVID time? We did that?
I believe it was around the very beginning of COVID time. I'll be able to tell you exactly when it was right now by just giving it a quick search. It was episode 81, and it was June of 2020 that we aired the episode. So yeah, quite a long time now.
Yeah. I mean, it's more of a happy birthday to you personally. I think, you know, keeping this thing going with the various moving parts of people moving in and out. I think you need to give yourself a little pat on the back. You've developed a nice little community off the back of it.
It's chugging along, isn't it? We're cracking on quite nicely here, and
we haven't been cancelled yet.
No. There's been some attempts at times, but nothing too wild. Just the internet being the internet, so we're all right with that. We don't mind that. We'll take the blows as they come. We've had some really cool opportunities. We've done some pretty cool stuff. Raised quite a lot of money for charity as well. Of course, remember the charity live stream we did got us almost £2,000, I think, in the end for Albion in the community. So we've done some good. We've done obviously our current partnership with Andy's Man's Club as well, like is already lovely. And I don't know if you saw the video that the Albion published yesterday for the suicide.
Yeah, I did, yeah, which is really nice. I listened to I know they're sort of plugging other podcasts, but the official episode that the club did on that whole topic, with, you're gonna have to forgive me that I can't remember exactly where the chat was from. He's an Albion fan, but it was really powerful if you've not listened to it. And I think as part of the initiative, the club are developing effectively, as I understand it, a space that's going to be available on match days if you feel like you need to speak to someone, you know, in a sort of non-judgmental, confidential manner. There's going to be some sort of in-person, you know, service available, which, you know, it's exactly the sort of thing that you'd think the Albion would get involved in. And yeah, I think the whole thing, it's a really kind of positive story to come out of something which is inherently always negative. if you understand, if you see the point of it. So no, it's all good. I think it's nice. I think now in this sort of podcast era that, you know, we can all in very small ways just try and do something vaguely meaningful with something which, you know, for us is, you know, we do as a bit of fun. But if there's, you know, if we can make any degree of positive impact on anyone, even if it's encouraging them to go and, you know, seek help elsewhere, then that's a little positive, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's make sure it is elsewhere. They don't want to use us for levity and safety. Yeah, we'll definitely seek out professionals or fellow likewise, you know, people who are attending these things. Don't tune into us idiots and hope for anything positive. Not in the negative headspace, because I got told off for being too negative last week. So we'll try and be a bit happier. And it's easy to be happy because it's episode 300. So we're very happy that we're here. Doom in the chat saying that we were unlucky, according to Fabian Hertzler. Feel like we have a lot of conversations to be had this week about what this team looked like. More than anything, it was a very different style of football than we're used to. And I mean, we talk about different styles of football, but I mean, the change from Ange ball to Frank ball can't be much more different either, right? Like their principles are totally different, right? Like the set pieces and reliance on being defensively sound is Frank's be all and end all, and Ange's is, I mean, it's the exact opposite, right? Like it's just throw shit at a wall and see how many goals we can score and hope it's more than the other team. So there was two teams kind of going out there with two very different outlooks. The only thing is we expected that from Spurs and Frank. Didn't expect to see what we saw from the Albion yesterday, did we? What did you make of that starting 11 first and foremost? Most notably, Gruder and Jorginho, given the run in the 10 and 9 role, and no De Kuiper, of course, with the injury that he sustained against Bournemouth from Semenyo's foul that was never called. Kadioglu coming in there. What were your thoughts on that starting 11? How are you feeling going into the Spurs game?
I think it's as good as we could have expected, starting 11 wise. We've talked, and indeed the fan base at large has talked about this Jorginho Gruder conundrum of being able to fit them into the same 11. So we instantly got a chance to see that. Kadioglu in, Veltman still in, no Weaver at right back. Given what was available to us, it was kind of our best 11, I think.
Like, I forgot I was on mute. I actually totally agree. Like, and we talked about it, with the injuries we had, and with certain players not yet having a chance to prove themselves. On paper, it's the strongest I feel we could have put out as well. I was pretty happy with what we had going out there. What shocked me, and I'm sure shocked you, and I know has been the talk of the town on just about every piece of social media going, right? Like, is the total change in tactics. The old system, which I've come to think of as a more pragmatic, read boring version of De Zerbi's football, right? Like, it felt like the pragmatic version of that, which is kind of what we saw in that last 6 months, which was not so great. And I think that's probably reflected in the fan base overall. I think regardless of whether you're positive or negative about this team and whether you're happy or not happy with the results, I think we can all admit that the style of play is less fun than it has been in recent years. But this was a total throwout. And I termed it yesterday in my Finalysis review as we kind of reverted to Ranieri ball. We went full on, sit back, absorb pressure, and hit with what we hope to be like devastating speed on the counter. We have that in abundance across that front four. We had a whole bunch of players that can pick a pass in amongst that front six. And for the first 45 minutes, although it wasn't fun to watch, it was bloody effective, wasn't it?
It was very effective. Very, very effective. Like you say, playing to our strengths considerably. The only slight issue is, for me, if you're going to play that way, you've got to be very solid at the back, which Veltman was his normal self. I thought Kadioglu marshalled Kudus pretty well. But we know that Dunk and Van Hecker have both not had the most solid start to the season. So you kind of felt like we were going to cough up chances with that style, especially when you've got, as we've discussed, Ruta playing on his own through the middle, who's got plenty of very, very good attributes as a footballer, but holding the ball up and retaining possession as a number 9 is not one of those attributes. So if you're going to have that, what it meant was that there was a lot of pressure coming back the other way. And I kind of felt like it was going to tell at some point. So I could see what he was trying to do, but we don't have the recent defensive solidity for me to have seen that through for 90 minutes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I thought it was interesting watching that back line because Veltman, I totally agree. I don't think there's much more needed be said about Veltman all episode, really. I thought he was superb at the job he was asked to do. And I like, great, no notes. Like, I thought he was excellent. The rest of the back line, I thought, was interesting because they all didn't prove me wrong. I guess that's not the right idea. Like, proved my conceptions about them to be wrong. Kadioglu, I always consider to be a very offensive-minded fullback from watching the small things I saw of him at the Euros, and then us being lucky enough to sign him, and then kind of being moved out as a right winger for the majority of his start, and then left winger against Oxford, with obviously just being plagued by injuries. I always assumed he would be quite weak defensively. I haven't seen a left back look so comfortable defensively in Brighton's kit in years. Like, and that's not to slate De Kuyper or Estepinian, right? Like, they're both fabulous players, and Cucurella is still doing a great job for Chelsea, so he's obviously very good at his job. But I was just very shocked to see how good he looked man on man for the majority of that game. And then for the centre halves, I don't know how you felt about them, but it was quite interesting that a lot of, for me watching it, a lot of Thomas Frank's gameplay was get the ball out wide and pump the balls into the box, right? Like, we've got a lot of very tall, strong players, get the ball in, cause some problems, see if we can't get a goal from it. And they actually got 2 in the end, didn't they? But it seemed to be Dunk was loving life. It was sit further back, defend with your head more than anything else, no messing about. And it felt like it suited the Dunk of old. Like, he didn't have to do crazy stuff and be super high and track back. Whereas for Van Hecker, this is not something we've seen him have to deal with before. And despite the podcast in general being a big fan of JP, it was probably one of the worst games we've seen for me personally, one of the poorest performances I've seen from him.
Yeah, agreed. Kind of carried on from the second half of the Bournemouth game, right? I mean, we touched on his tackle for the penalty, and he's kind of just flowed on from there. I mean, I think you're right about Dunk. It was a throwback, almost kind of Chris Hughton-esque Brighton performance in certain aspects from that defensive approach. I mean, I do remember one particular game sticks out under that Hughton thing, and I think it was West Ham away in the first season in the Premier League, where we won, I think, 3-1 at West Ham, and they seemed to just put hundreds of crosses in, and Duffy and Dunk just spent all game happily heading everything away. So I think, right, it's exactly throwback, but I say it is and I think obviously in those days it was sort of necessitated by the fact that we were limited, as a Premier League, first season in the Premier League, relatively limited compared to the opposition. And this time, I don't know, it's a risky strategy if you deliberately adopt it, when we know that the players there are capable of playing a slightly more expansive style. I think you invite pressure. I think that's my only issue with the setup, was that the nature of it invites pressure. And we know, I was going to say, the only thing that we know also, that when we were playing in a different way, we know how vulnerable we've been to being 2-0 up. Right, that's like absolute kryptonite for this squad, seemingly. So yeah, I think that is the only drawback, is that, are we good enough to absorb all of that pressure and see games out? And the evidence we have from Hertzler's Albion so far is, for the most part, no, in those situations where we're 2-0 up. I'd rather be 1-0 up, bizarrely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fact, right? Like, we lost 22 points from winning positions last year, was in my notes here. Like, and it was more than any other team in the Premier League by genuinely, I think, about 7-point margin. Like, we were so far ahead of everybody else in terms of points lost from winning positions last year. And of course, we were also amongst the highest of points gained from losing positions. I can't remember the exact number for that, but like, we were one of the most resilient kind of late goal scoring teams to bring points back on the board. So it's such a bizarre mentality to have, where we can't see out leads, but we can sure as heck bring them back into view. And for that first 7 or so minutes, I was I was getting ready to message you guys in the chat right before Minte rounded the keeper and say, this is the worst 7 minutes I've watched us play in a long time. Like, I'm very worried here. Like, for now, the defenders look comfortable. What is happening? And then the plan clicked into gear, it seemed, because we won the ball back in the middle of the park, and a lightning quick kind of piece of play between Gruder to Georgie, who found Minte beautifully as well. What a pass that was, right? Which he struggled with for much of the rest of the game, I felt. Jorginho's distribution was not the best, but that one was an absolute beauty, and Minte just broke away. His speed is just, it was so much so that Van der Ven couldn't catch him. And if Van der Ven's not catching you, you're quite quick. And the coolness and composure to just round Vicario and tap the ball into the back of the net. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, interesting. If that's the plan, I'm bought in for now. They'd had 76% possession prior to that goal. No shots. Their pass success rate was 90% before that goal. They had totally dominated us from the first whistle, and then bosh, 23% possession, one shot, one on target, goal, 1-0. Very weird, wasn't it, for an Albion team?
Bizarre, very, very bizarre. I'd say great goal. I mean, there's nothing but praise for all aspects of the goal. The only thing was, it's like Spurs had gone back to Ange ball for like a nanosecond, because they were just that defensive high line was just outrageous. I mean, like one pass and Minte has basically half the pitch to himself. It was wild defending from that aspect. Like you say, the composure. I mean, we've seen Minte one-on-one before do both things, right? We've seen him be super composed, and we've seen him make a complete mess of one-on-ones as well. But perfect. I mean, waited for Vicario to commit, and then cool as you like, just sat him down and away we go. So I mean, it was perfect. At that point, you can see the game plan as you outlined at the beginning. That was a perfect execution of what he wanted us to do. No complaint.
Yeah, and I mean, for much of the next 20 minutes or so, it was much the same. Like, it was very much rinse and repeat. Soak up pressure, weather a storm of mainly crosses, it felt like. Allow Richarlison to get more and more upset, which was quite funny until he scored. And I mean, at the time of our second goal, they had 60% possession, 2 shots, 2 off target. At that point, we had already had 3 shots, 2 of those on target. So they were like, we were bouncing back, having like a minute or 2 in the ascendancy, and then allowing them to just kind of pour back on and allow them to just throw balls into the box and not really get anything from it. And then all of a sudden we struck again, like a superb attack that I thought was going to cause major problems. Just kind of fell away, and it kind of looked like it was going to be recycled back. But I think it was Spence or Udogie won the ball and passed it straight to Ayari by accident, who then took about 3 touches, cut in, and absolutely belted like a stunning hit to put us 2-0 up. And all of a sudden you're like, all right, like if we keep doing this could be 4 or 5. Like, they don't know what the hell to do with it. They can't handle it at all. But at the same time, you're sat there watching it and going like, they can't keep not making their chances though, right? Like, how at 2-0 and half an hour on the clock, how were you feeling with what that tactic was doing, how it was going to last, and all the pressure they were having? Did you feel as if it was inevitable that there was going to be a whiplash, or did you feel like we could go on and cause some big problems here?
No, I'll be completely honest. I still didn't see us winning the game at 2-0 up. I think I messaged you slightly jokingly at half-time going, we're going to lose 3-2. But genuinely, that's not with the benefit of hindsight. Say what I said at the beginning, I genuinely didn't think we'd be able to keep that system and that defensive solidity for 90 minutes. I just didn't see it happening.
And I mean, it didn't, right? For the right before the end of the first half, we had the issue come through, and Richarlison scored what was in the end just a total scramble. And he was the one who were able to get on the end of it. But one of the biggest things there was an error by Van Hecker, who seemed to really struggle yesterday. I felt just with that back to the wall mentality. He's used to having the ball in comfort and passing the ball out and playing expansive football, right? Like he just looked incredibly uncomfortable yesterday from start to finish, which is a bit of a shame. And I think it was, the 43rd minute, Richarlison scored. And at halftime, 2-1, you're like, okay, like if we do the same again, we could definitely still win this game for sure. But we needed to come out and continue to show them that we can hit them hard and fast on the counter-attack. But the undoing felt almost immediate in Carlos Baleba coming off for Diego Gomez. And I messaged you guys at the time and said, I feel like there is a very large Carlos Baleba shaped empty space in the midfield for much of the second half. If this player is not fit, do you not think he should be coming on as a substitute in games as opposed to starting them and risking that rhythm breaking up? To me, I feel like if he's starting games, he's fit enough to play in them. So I feel like he should have stayed on. But Hertzler is saying that he wasn't fit enough and was too tired to carry on playing after a half of football. He's also said that his head is essentially gone from the Man United interest, and that he's having to kind of like rebuild his focus almost, which is not great to hear, right? Like from one of your best players, but it is what it is. Like for me, I just felt, like losing him at half time. Diego Gomez is simply just not a combative defensive midfielder, and it. I guess I'm surprised we didn't see Matt Sweefer maybe come on in that spot, or James Milner if we wanted to play like a deep lying midfielder, which was kind of necessitated by the game plan, right? We were hoping to play a sit back and ping it out. So, what were your thoughts on that substitution?
Yeah,
in the
absolutely with you. Yeah, absolutely with you. I was expecting to see Milner, to be honest, if there was going to be any change in that role. On Baleba, I do have sympathy for Hertzler on this, because it's a sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. Because if you don't pick him and we're not getting results, the natural thing is that everyone goes, why are you leaving our best central midfielder like on the bench or not in the squad when we're losing games? But if you do pick him when he's not fit, then you're going to run into this scenario where you're sort of getting a half-baked version of Baleba. I mean, I thought he looked knackered by about 35 minutes, but he was like, it just looked like he'd played 120 minutes of football in the first 35 minutes. So I have appreciation for him. He is really damned if he does, damned if he doesn't, especially obviously having lost Hinchelwood, last week. So, losing another midfield option. We know Weaver's been injured as well, off and on. So I've got a lot of sympathy for it, but it was an odd substitution in the sense that, as you say, Gomez is very much a different player, tends to be from our limited experiences of him slightly more attacking. So as I say, if you're going to stick religiously to that game plan, you needed Milner really in there, which obviously we got, but too late.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a little bit too late, wasn't it, when Milner came on? It felt like Hertzler saw the error he'd made, but the horse had bolted at that point. It was kind of the momentum, as they say, had changed so heavily. Pierre in the chat, I feel like, was the voice of all fans at that point, just before half time. He was saying just before half time, don't get sloppy and give away a goal before the break. Otherwise, that's going to change the way things go. And we did, and it did. For me, I honestly felt like it was going to be something we could definitely replicate in that second half. But it felt like our tactics shifted from disciplined defending and rapid counterattacking to just defending like we're in the 88th minute and trying to see out a win. And we sat back for what felt like the entire half, except for that last kind of 5 minutes where it became really frenetic. it just felt like a really negative display for that second half. Do you think it was a mentality thing? Do you think it was like an intentional thing? Because our manager talks about intensity and courage and challenging the establishment and blah 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 blah. But I mean, we allowed them 66% possession in the second half, and they really poured it on for the vast majority of it until that equalizer, where everything kind of just went a bit mental from the 82nd minute onwards. What do you think the conversations were at halftime there when this came through, or do you think it was simply this current team's mentality is tough to keep disciplined for 90 minutes? We've talked about the fact that we seem to play well for half hour of games and then disappear.
I keep coming back to it. It's a very difficult thing to execute for 90 minutes. I think because you have such little margin for error, especially when you've only got that one goal lead, right? So you've got no margin for error. So if you're quite happy to let the opposition have the ball for double the amount of time that you have it, basically, like basic statistics is going to say that they're probably going to have double the number of chances that you are. And if you've got, if you're not right on your game defensively throughout the whole thing, you're going to end up conceding another goal, like more often than not. The setup, it felt like, and this might be a harsh way to describe it, it kind of felt like where a lower league team has a cup tie against a bigger club, and their game plan is very much let's be really defensively solid. Let's try and take our chances on the break, and then let's try and hold out. The kind of Grimsby Man United, that's how that game sort of went. And, they got away with it at the end, but they basically blitzed them in the first half and then went, right, we're just going to sit on it and see if we're good enough to hold out. And it is effective. Like, it's an effective approach. I just think maybe it's more difficult for us to get used to because it's like our approach of the last, 5 or 6 years especially, but probably the last decade overall has been an entirely different approach to that. So maybe it's just difficult to get used to. I don't know. But I find it quite an uncomfortable approach, especially at home as well, to happily give up, 65% possession. It feels like against a team with the attacking quality that they've got, it feels like a gamble.
And I think that it would have felt less so if it was 2-0 at the half, right? Because in theory, you're then sat there and this game goes the same way and Van Hecker scores an own goal in the 82nd minute and it's 2-1. And frankly, they looked absolutely knackered from trying to break us down all that time. I don't think that last 8 minutes goes greatly differently. I don't think there's a huge amount of difference in the way that last 10 minute goes after the Van Hecker own goal if it's 2-1. I think they obviously throw a bit more at it, but I think they looked shattered trying to chase that goal. And that's why for that last 10 minutes, it went a bit mental. But for me, at 2-0, it would have not been great to watch, but I would have understood it a little bit more than 2-1, because as you say, you make one mistake and the goal goes in and it's 2-2 and you risk then losing a game that you were 2-0 up in. It was just a strange thing to watch, and it looked like the team weren't used to it at all in large parts because we were defending so deep for so long. What did you make of the decision to bring on Milner for Gruder, Welbeck for Ruta, and Coppola for Minte? That was probably the strangest one for me. The Milner one seemed like it was an adjustment from what he'd got wrong, and was right, let's stick Gomez further up because that's what he's comfortable doing. Let's put Milner in and settle in the midfield, and then Welbeck for Ruta seemed like an obvious fatigue one. And then I guess the last one would be the Coppola and where he played. Central defensive midfielder, Diego Coppola. That's exactly where he was being played. I thought it was going to be a back three, but he was quite deep into the midfield, wasn't he? just seemed like a random one. And I can't help but just wonder what Boskagli's thinking.
Yeah, all very bizarre, that substitution. I mean, Minte didn't look that happy to come off. His body language didn't look terrific to come off. Probably justifiably so, in that, you know, he's been comfortably our best player in every game, I think, pretty undisputably. And the net result of that was that when you've got Mitoma, who wasn't having his best of games, you take off Minte and you don't bring on Tommy Watson, for instance, you're automatically losing that only counter-attacking outlet that you've potentially got to relieve pressure. It's basically cranking up the pressure even more. You're bringing on more defensive players, but you're ceding them even more possession.
It felt that way, didn't it? Like it felt like a strange set of subs. And of course, shortly after that, the goal came. It's tough to really talk about that second half in too much depth because it really was a case of just sitting back really deep and then having the odd half-hearted counter-attack and seeing if we could do anything. But for the most part, we couldn't. I felt like we were let down mostly by just really poor, like, final balls in, right? Like, that felt like my biggest issue yesterday on the counter-attack. If you're going to be as effective as you want to be on the counter-attack, those final balls have to be, like, beautiful. Like, I go back to the Ranieri ball, right? Like, they had Mahrez doing that for, like, Vardy and co. And the mercurial Danny Drinkwater. But they had these players that were just that for Drinkwater specifically, he just seemed to catch lightning in a bottle for a year and then go about his business. And Mahrez obviously was superb for a long time. But like they had players with that final ball. And for us yesterday, it felt like none of them had it quite. Like Minte, when he did have that opportunity to get the final ball, not quite enough. Baleba, same, like wayward a little bit, overpaced, sometimes not enough. Georgie was terrible for like that last second decision making. There was a couple of times where I was just like, be more selfish, Georgie. Like you can see Mitoma's covered by two guys and it's leaving you open. Like bring it forward another 8 yards and then see what happens. Like, and if you hit it and you don't score, everyone's going to appreciate that you kept the ball and went for it anyway, right? Like as opposed to try and thread through the ball in like a really like impossible, like a pass that De Bruyne's not making in his prime. And you tried it anyway. Like, no, just come forward and smack it. Like, we'll all cheer regardless because we want to see someone give it a go. And Pierre in the chat also mentioned that it almost ended up at the end of the game with Van Hecke being thrown up top as well, which again was just like a weird setup to me as well. Like, I don't know why you did that. Like, it was just strange.
No, and again, that's very much something you do when you're trying to sort of shithouse an equalizer, isn't it? It's not what you do when a game's quite evenly poised at 2-2. Yeah, very strange. I mean, I don't know whether tactically he's now almost, he's not in panic mode, but you sort of wonder if he's chasing too hard. I don't know if that makes sense. You know what I mean? He's almost like, he's sort of now not wedded to a particular system. And he's almost now like just seeing like how much mud can we sling at the wall? Like how many different approaches can we sling and see what sticks to try and get us out of the rut? And I say it's difficult. I have a lot of sympathy for him to the extent that, you know, he's sort of damned if he does, damned if he doesn't, because last year his style, whether or not you enjoyed watching the football, and you know what side of the fence I was on when it came to that, what's undeniable is that it was mighty effective for a lot of the season in a lot of games. I mean, you don't accumulate 61 points if you don't have a level of like consistency, right? But this year, it's not as effective. So it's really difficult in that if he continues to do the same thing every week when it started to not work, you'll get people on your back. But if you try and do something different and it doesn't work, you'll also still get people on your back. So I think it's really difficult, and I think obviously we've not been that used to having a difficult start for a while. Like the last few seasons, we've burst out of the blocks, regardless of who the manager was.
Yeah.
Like that Potter season where he left, we'd burst out of the blocks. Obviously, De Zerbi's sort of second season, as it were, we burst out of the blocks. Hertzler's first season, we were really good. I think it's like the last 3 years, we'd won like 4 of our first 5 games, I think. Almost that kind of form. So we've not had a difficult start for quite a long time. And you can tell that a lot of the squad have not experienced a start like that, particularly in a Brighton shirt. So it's really difficult. Like I say, I have a lot of sympathy for it, but it's an unforgiving division, especially this year. I made the point a couple of weeks ago, especially with all 3 promoted clubs are giving it a real go this year. It's an unforgiving division, and there's pressure. Like there is undoubted pressure. You can see it. Like you can see it in the players. I think you can see that they're aware that the start has not been stellar.
It feels like one of those cliche phrases of like, you can't win if you're scared of losing. Like it's whatever there's like a specific like cliche phrase there, like, right? Like you can't be scared to lose and win. Like you just can't. They're shelling up, like all of them. I agree with you, because that's how it feels like now. It feels like Hertzler is more scared of losing than he is of trying to win. And like that's the downfall for any manager in any game, in any athlete, right? Like you can't make it to the next level if that takes over your mentality where you're too scared to lose, because it can just be devastating for you and the team you're looking at. And I feel like that last like 8 or so minutes, like pretty much summed it up. We conceded, and the stats between then and the end of the game was we had 3 shots. None of them on target, but 3 shots to their 55% possession. They were done. They were cooked to me, Robin. Like it looked like Spurs were exhausted, and they were like, "Brilliant, nick a point and get the hell home." We are shattered at the amount of work we've had to put in to break these guys down. Let's just get out of here and go home. Their substitutions told me that was the case. Jed Spence and Archie Gray coming on for Porro and Bergvall, right? Like a like for like, and one more slightly more defensive midfielder. And when you're chasing the game at home, you've been 2-0 up, you've just coughed up a 2-goal lead. The team look utterly exhausted that you're playing against. For me, when I see a bench of Boscagli, Seamas, Watson, and Weaver available to me, and I'm chasing the game with 8 minutes to go, I'm putting on Seamas and sticking 2 up top, or I'm bringing on Watson for whoever, probably one of those defenders, maybe Veltman or someone like that, and going for it and kind of seeing if he can do something crazy. Instead, we saw Matt Weaver come on for Ferdi Kadioglu, and it felt like a signal that we were pretty much happy to accept a draw. And for me, it's one of those classic cases of, if you offered me a draw before the game, I'd have bit your hand off for a draw against this new look Tottenham, because I think they look very good. The manner of the draw stings a bit, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I mean, it's really bizarre, because I think, and it sounds very obvious to say it, but had we hung on for a 2-1 win, everything we've just said about Hertzler's deliberate approach to this game, playing the kind of counter-attacking, defensively solid strategy, everyone's taking the hat off to him and going, fair play, mate. You've looked at the Spurs team and you've gone, our best chance is to play a counter-attacking football against them. And if that comes off, especially given their start to the season, like you take your hat off to him, right? Like you applaud it, but it's I say I just didn't have it sounds awful, but say I never had confidence that it was going to result in a win. I mean, I'm interested to know what the vibe was for you in the ground with everyone. Like, what was the feeling? Was there a feeling of like, when we went 2-0 up, was there a genuine feeling of like, we're going to batter these? Or was it like, I don't know.
Mixed, very mixed. Unsurprisingly, I think. And once the second goal went in, it was very much resignation that it was coming. I think the most interesting piece was that everybody around me felt the same way I did, in like, they look dead on their feet. We can all see it. Make an attack in substitution and go for it. We're happy to lose this 3-2 if we sit here and watch Albion proper go for it for the next 9 minutes. We're going to feel less disappointed in the result if we lost 3-2 and we watched the Albion just absolutely hammer them for the next 9 minutes. And you felt the entire like stadium kind of just deflate when it became more and more clear that we weren't that fussed on doing so. I mean, when you saw Danny Welbeck run around like he'd been kind of in a 90-minute game when he'd actually been on for about 12 minutes and just didn't seem like he wanted to be out there, it just wasn't a good vibe. Like, it just looked like they were just, that was it. Like 2-2, get out of here, go home. And that's great for a team if they want to survive and be a Premier League football team, right? Like, and that's currently where we are. 5 games in, trajectory-wise, point per game, 38 points, just about surviving in this league. We are supposed to be going for Europe, so like that's not the trajectory, and we're 10 points worse off than where we were against these same teams last year, which is a large amount of points to try and make up, right? So that's 61 down to 51 already that we've got to try and chase back. So I really hoped we would see a little bit more going for it, if that makes sense. Like, I really wanted us to go for it.
We've seen it, right? In that City game. We've seen that's basically what they did for half an hour, is they were relentless. So we know this team can do it. That's the thing. And we know they can do it recently in the last home game, in fact. So it's not like, it's not something that's tucked away in the back catalogue somewhere. Like, this was 2-3 weeks ago, whatever it was.
Yeah. It was absolutely insane, honestly. I just can't understand why some players look so unfit as well. Like Welbeck, like yesterday when he came on, I just couldn't believe how tired he looked from the minute he got on the pitch. He had 12 touches, 1 shot, didn't really do a great deal for a team that should have hopefully been chasing a winner. Like, he looked tired. Like, it just, I don't know. Like, there's still that feeling of something being off in this squad right now.
I'm with you. The odd thing, I mean, if it was Welbeck in isolation, you could make a very logical argument for the fact that his age has caught up with him over the summer. Like, that wouldn't be that wild to go, right, like, fine. He had a brilliant season last year. His age has caught up with him. And you go, sad, but fair enough. You can see it. The fact that it's him, Alaba, Mitoma to an extent looks similarly knackered. Ruta as well. I mean, Ruta's an interesting one because obviously he had a long time out injured towards the end of last season. He came back, had a full pre-season. He's not got the excuse of Baleba, who played a ton of football last year. So Ruta should be like sharp as anything. So when it's multiple players, you're like, that's when it becomes, like you say, it feels like, I don't know, something's a little bit off. And it's bizarre because, we hear from Hertzler a lot about intensity. And you mentioned it earlier. He's talked about how training is very intense. So there's kind of two, like, are they overdoing it in training and therefore not having the energy when it comes to game day? Or does he have a different definition of what intensity is when it comes to what intensity needs to be in the Premier League? Because it's either like they're either overtraining or undertraining, presumably, to then not be able to do it on match day, to me. Unless that's oversimplifying it.
I'm sure they'd tell you you're oversimplifying it, but it does seem apparent. Like it does seem like there is a tiredness issue across the whole squad. We had 40 clearances yesterday. Do you know when the last time we had a clearance stat of over 40 in the Premier League? The last time we had over 40.
I'd guess it was a Houghton game. If I had,
it was not. It was not. It was February 3rd, 2021. The 1-0 win against Liverpool at Anfield. Okay. That was it. That was the last time. So we haven't had a game where we've made that many clearances, which is essentially just back to the wall football, right? And hoofing the ball out since 2021. And that was very much pragmatic Potter ball back then, right? Like that was just and we were all right with that because he seemed to tailor that style to different teams. And 1-0 up at Anfield. Yep, cool. Take that. Run. We actually saw it out, so it feels a lot better when that happens. But that's a big gap, right? Like it's a huge difference between the quality of the team, and Robin has gone, so I'm just going to keep talking to myself. All right, so it's just me. We'll go back to it's quite good that this is happening because Robin's back now. I was going to say we're harking back to the first episodes where I just yapped on my own.
Sorry about that. I would just caught the end of what you're saying. Yeah, it was very much back to the wall football, and it's I don't know. It's such a step change from what we've been used to. That's why I'm maybe finding it a little bit jarring because it's the whole trajectory as you move through managers has been largely to try and keep broadly the same style, an evolution of.
Well, then here's my next question.
Like it's not.
Here's my next question for you then, because it was, funnily enough, our next Premier League fixture that saw one of the most unhinged tactics in Brighton history, with Hertzler going to Stamford Bridge and essentially playing a style of football that Postecoglou would think was too extreme. It was the most insane throwout we'd ever done. And a week before we go back to Stamford Bridge under Hertzler, we just played a style that was the exact opposite of that for the first time under Hertzler ever. Is this a one-off? And was it just to see what would happen if we tried this style? Or do you think this might be an indicator of what we're going to do going forward? And I guess more than anything, with Chelsea and Stamford Bridge on the horizon and the way those tactics failed spectacularly last time, what do you think that looks like? And we have a cup competition in the middle of the week. We certainly aren't going to be sitting back defending for our lives for 90 minutes at Barnsley, are we? With our what you would consider a very strong secondary lineup. So, what's your gut telling you on what this was yesterday? Do you think it was a performance in a vacuum, similar to the Chelsea game almost a year ago? Or do you think this one might be more indicative of a way this club might be wanting to play football under Fabian Hertzler going forward this season with the start we've had? What are your thoughts?
What I hope it is developing a second string to the bow in terms of how we can approach games. And you're exactly right. This is how we should be approaching the game at Stamford Bridge. We should go in with the idea of being defensively as solid as possible, but with our ability to counterattack, because we know that for all of the attacking talent that Chelsea have spent money on, barring Cucurella especially, I don't think their defence is all that, to be honest. I know they've got Enzo and they've got Caicedo sitting in front of them, who've both been excellent largely, but their defence itself I don't think is stellar. So logically, you'd hope that what yesterday was twofold. One, trying to develop, a viable another way of playing, but also a practice run for, to be honest, probably one of our most difficult away games of the season. When you consider what happened last year, when you consider the João Pedro factor of, you know that when a striker leaves your club and goes somewhere else, that you're going to play against them. There's this sort of like slightly magnetic effect of what's going to happen. Then you have all the other players that have gone. So we know the Chelsea game has a whole kind of media circus around it. So I hope it's a sort of an audition for what we're going to do next week. Honestly, I hope that's not what we saw yesterday. I hope that's not going to be the, our sort of go-to approach in games, because it's difficult. It's difficult to watch. It's nearly effective. That's why I say it's one where it's like it almost turns on a sixpence in terms of how it's perceived, right? Because you hold out for 8 minutes more, as we said a few minutes ago, and you see out a 2-1 win, and the conversation is naturally very different to the one we're having. That being said, it still wasn't that great to watch either way. So it kind of comes back to, are we, last season, like I said a few minutes ago, it was kind of, I endured the style because it was largely very effective against all sorts of teams. This year, so far, we're not seeing, I'm enduring the style, but we're not seeing the payoff of it working at the other end, personally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's worth noting, especially defensively, Chelsea have seen a huge boost to their back line this weekend with Sanchez getting a 3-game ban. So we should see them probably be a bit better off without him in goal against us, because he was always primed to at least one absolute meltdown specifically against us. And obviously Cucurella, who generally is an excellent left back, will definitely have at least one meltdown as well. But I agree with you. It does feel inevitable that João Pedro is probably going to at least score one against us. So hopefully we can score two. Who was your man of the match for the Spurs game? Obviously, it's a weird one because we didn't have much of the ball at all to do much with. But what was your thoughts there? Who stood out to you as kind of your guy, or if there was multiple?
Yeah, there are multiple. Like I said, I mean, we haven't given him as much praise as we should have done. But Veltman, I thought, was excellent. I think it's difficult because he generally has such good games, and he tends to kind of fly under the radar. But he often doesn't get. He's one of those players that you often see the impact when he's not there, right? And we've seen absolutely. That earlier this season, right? Veltman was excellent. I thought Kadioglu was excellent. I know I've previously, as to Tim's point, he says we're reasonably miserable. I've been reasonably miserable about Kadioglu, but I thought that was probably his best game, I think, I've seen from him since he joined. So he's got to be up there. And Minte has been excellent, has been, clearly the standout for the season so far. So I could conceivably give it to any of those three, really. Probably Minte, on balance. Had we seen, and I know it sounds really harsh to say it this way, had we held out for a 2-1 win, I probably would have given it to either Kadioglu or Veltman. Neither of them were at fault for the goal. So it feels harsh to deny them man of the match indirectly. But I sort of feel like had we seen out a 2-1 win, I would have sort of rewarded the defensive line a bit more.
I think it makes sense. Minte for me as well. Like I think he has just came on in leaps and bounds this season. Like I just cannot believe how much better he looks this year than last. And I mean, we all thought he was good last year. I think like the raw talent he has, like everyone could see it. But his first touch, especially this year, seems to have just like rocketed in terms of quality. And it's leaving defenders just absolutely racking their brains as to how to deal with him, because he is just so good at turning them inside out, and then that pace is just absolutely nuts. Like when I think it was one of the fullbacks was racing forward, and he just put his foot on the gas for like 5 yards, and all of a sudden he was caught them up again. Like, and they were hounding it, like they were going as fast as they could, and he just kind of put the boosters on for a second and was immediately back alongside them. And it's just it's just nuts to see in real life and on TV. Like you can
Is
see.
he not the? I think he's the quickest player. I think he's clocked the highest speed in the Premier League this year so
He
far. I think.
doesn't shock me.
So yeah, I think he has.
Yeah, it does not shock me at all. Let's talk Barnsley quickly because I'm really looking forward to this one. I'm going, and I'm very excited. Feels like a nostalgic throwback of heading up north to some random town with 600 other Albion fans and just enjoying a game of football that doesn't feel like the be all end all. What are your hopes in terms of the lineup here? Because there are obviously a lot of people hoping to see players like Seamas play, obviously. And last time out at the Kassam with Oxford, it was Steele, Veltman, Coppola, Buscagli, Igor, Hinshelwood, Milner, Kadioglu, Gomez, Howell, and Gruder. Now, Gruder will not be featuring in the same way he has because he's just played and kind of won himself his starting role in the main squad. Veltman will definitely not be playing either, same reason. Kadioglu probably won't be starting either, same reason. Hinshelwood is now unfortunately obviously injured for a couple of months. What do you foresee this lineup looking like? And for me, I think the obvious one is you take out Kadioglu and put Watson on the left. You take out Gruder and put Seamas in the striker role. But what about the rest? Do you hope to see a Costolas more than 6 minutes or so that he got?
Yeah, I think we have to.
Yeah, do you think Igor gets more time? Because we've not seen the height or hair of Igor before or after Oxford, and yet he randomly started at left back. And what do you see out? Like that was such a strange thing to have him not anywhere, and assumingly everyone just figured he was moving on, and then he doesn't. Starts against Oxford and has never been near the squad since. Do you think he just pops back up for this one?
I mean, he did leave, right? He went to West Ham.
Oh my god, yeah, of course he did. What an absolute clown.
I couldn't decide if you were being ironic or not, so I was waiting for you to finish.
No, I was just being an absolute idiot. No, of course he did. Yeah, so I guess he won't be playing anywhere. Who else do you want to see start? Obviously, Buscagli will be in. I think that's an obvious one.
Yeah.
And Coppola again. I think for the most part, you'll see Steele in goal, Coppola and Buscagli at the back. Milner, I would be assuming will start. Howell as well. I would like to see Watson and Seamas.
Yeah.
But what about some of these others that were on the bench?
I presume Gomez will start because I think he started in the Oxford game, didn't he?
He did.
So I presume Gomez will start. I mean, if I had to, is Weaver going? I mean, it's like, is De Kuyper going to be eased back in? Are they going to be super? Are they going to be wrapping him in cotton wool? I don't know. I'd like to see Costulas come in as well. I mean, Barnsley are pretty high flying in League One. So you've got to assume that players like Babis are like match fit enough to be starting against the team in League One. If they're not deemed in, we're pretty much October nearly now. If they're deemed to not be match fit enough to play against a team in League One in October, is that a concern at this point? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, they're sixth place, and they've been on a bit of a strange run in their last couple of games. Win, loss, win, win, loss. No draws allowed for Barnsley for the last couple of games. They just lost to Blackpool this weekend, 1-0, who are in 22nd. So like they seem to just be a classic League One side where they're just going to get points and throw points away on just random games. Their last couple have been a loss against Blackpool. They beat Reading at home 3-2, beat Huddersfield at home 3-1, and then lost at Wimbledon 2-0, and beat Peterborough away 1-0, drew with Bolton at home. They seem very mixed, really. Their home form is very good. They haven't lost at home yet this season. And to be honest, I'm not super knowledgeable on most of their players. And that's not too disrespectful, I hope, because even when we were in League Two, I wouldn't know anything about League One players for the most part. So it's just one of those things. But we've already seen a couple of Carabao Cup shocks already, haven't we? Obviously, the big one being the Swansea-Nottingham Forest game, where Forest were 2-0 up and talking of throwing away 2-0 leads, ended up losing to Swansea 3-2. For all of this talk that, people talk about it, a couple of people in the comments saying we're miserable, we're still very much in the cup competitions. And I would quite happily finish 16th this season and watch another, how many games have been? 5? Another 32, 33 football games in the Premier League, like I watched on Saturday, if we win a trophy at the end of this season.
Oh yeah, I mean 100%. It's not even a consideration at this point. I mean, I don't the famous last words. I don't really have too much of a worry about the Barnsley game. I know that's hubris. I'm inviting all sorts of hubris into this, but
yeah, you're asking for it now.
Yeah, I am asking for it, but I'd say I don't. I don't see too much of a worry. We went into the Oxford game. Similarly, not off the back of an amazing Premier League performance, and dominated that game. So I think we'll be fine against Barnsley. I really do. I'd be really, really surprised if we got knocked out.
For what it's worth, I feel the same way. I'm excited to go for that reason. I'm excited to see some of these players that I wish we were seeing a little bit more regularly in the Premier League. I'm excited to see the style of play that we can implement with some of these younger players that are really up for it. And of course, Chelsea next, but then Wolves after that. And we're talking around how competitive this Premier League is. I don't want to get way too ahead of myself because we all say 10 games this, 10 games that, but it almost feels like Wolves have a bottom 3 spot on lock already, doesn't it? They look like a total disaster on and off the pitch at almost every level feasible for a football club. And I would be very shocked if they are in the Premier League next season. 5 games, 5 losses, 3 goals for, 12 goals against, 0 points on the board at all. They have played Manchester City. They've played Bournemouth, Everton, Newcastle, and Leeds. So there are a couple of games there where if you're a relegation team, even Wolves, if you're thinking, let's get out of that bottom 3, Leeds at home, you're looking at that one and going, that's a must win right there. You put your hat on that. You absolutely have to win that game. You look at another one, Wolves at home to Everton. You go point minimum 3 optimally, right? Lost both of them. And most recently, Leeds battered them. It looks bad for them, doesn't it? Just talking kind of
it does.
In the league right now, it looks rough.
It does. And it's quite random after losing all your first games to reward your manager with a new 3-year contract, which they've done this week.
Bizarre.
Which is bizarre. I mean, they've lost Cunha and they've lost Ait-Nouri over the summer, who were their sort of shining lights of quality. I know they've kept hold of Larson, who was heavily linked with Newcastle. And I think he scored 14, 15 Premier League goals last season. So they've kept hold of him. But yeah, they look so far off what's required. So hopefully when we get to that Wolves game, I mean, we can go there with reasonable expectation without angering Tim especially too much. What we have done is we do know that if you're a team that's not on an especially good run, one of the teams that you want to see strolling into town to play you is the Albion, unfortunately.
Yeah, we do have a tendency, don't we? Dr. Brighton is coming to your door to help you get better.
Yeah, that is the only problem.
Yeah, we do have a run of fixtures after Chelsea, though, that I feel like we really need to start pulling some points from, right? Like Wolves away, Newcastle at home, United away, Leeds at home, Palace away, Brentford at home. For it, like
Yeah,
a lot of these teams are not
that's
what
the
they
run.
were. And I mean, you're looking at that bottom set again, as I say, like you've got teams down there that are quite a surprise, it feels like. Villa in the bottom three, and another poor result against a 10-man Sunderland for almost 70 minutes today, and only managed a 1-1 draw. West Ham, they're one. I don't know what's going to happen with West Ham. Burnley are Burnley. Brentford are seemingly inheriting the red and white stripes of Stoke City. Stoke in general, just they look so anti-football. They're grinding out points. And then you've got kind of Forest, us, Newcastle and Man City, who you don't anticipate being down there much, and Leeds and Sunderland have had really good starts. But it is a really hyper-competitive league this year. And the other one, like I say, that stands out, and the only other team that hasn't won in the league this year is Villa. What do you think's happening there? Because that's a team full of very
full
expensive players.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I suppose they've lost Rashford, who was on loan. They've lost Asensio, haven't they? Who was on loan with them from PSG, who was excellent. Yep. But then you look at it. I mean, they've kept Martinez. They've still got Konsa and Mings. They've still got Ollie Watkins. They've still got John McGinn. You know, the absolute spine of that team, who, were, pulling up trees in the Champions League last season, are all still there. And you've got Emery, as we've talked about, is a high quality manager who has proved himself everywhere he's been, other than Arsenal potentially. It's very bizarre. It's really odd, and it's not like really they've got to that stage of the season yet where they're playing relentlessly, Thursday, Sunday. They haven't got that. They haven't started yet, have they? I think. In terms of European games, they've not even got towards that point yet. So
it's
very bizarre. Yeah, it is this week, isn't it?
Like, doesn't get better for them. Like that, and their run hasn't started hard either. They've not played a bunch of teams like it's not been like us, right? Like because for all of the negativity that people have said that we have a little bit, but we've had a really hard start. Like we looked at it at the beginning of the season and said this is the most brutal opening 6 to 9 fixtures we've had in a long time. Villa have had Newcastle at home, Brentford away, Palace at home, Everton away, Brentford in the cup, and Sunderland away.
If you've not won any of those, then that's a concern. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've not been able to beat Sunderland with 10 men. You've got a man sent off against Newcastle game week 1, and you've been absolutely stomped by Palace at home 3-0 during that as well. Like it's just so strange.
It is very bizarre. It is very, very bizarre. But I think you're right to point to that run of games for us from Newcastle onwards. That has got to be that sort of middle of October till sort of middle of November, isn't it? Pretty much. And I think you've even then got it's that's where the points have got to start to come from. 100%.
Yeah, from Newcastle onwards, it becomes a pretty standard fixture list of a couple of hard ones, a couple of easier ones. Like it's nothing, there's no outstanding run there, right? Like Wolves away is something we would want to get points from. Newcastle at home is a tougher one. Old Trafford might be a tougher one looking at the way they are. Leeds at home should be picking up points. Palace away, it's a rivalry, so everything form but goes out the window. Brentford at home, you want to take points. Forest away, who knows who they're going to be. Villa at home, West Ham at home, easier games. Liverpool away, very difficult. Sunderland at home, easier. Arsenal away, very difficult. West Ham away. Like, you get that classic Premier League fixture list all the way through till the end of 2025 then.
That middle of October till middle of November, that has to be, like, we have to be picking up a chunk of points in that run from pretty much from Wolves away onwards for the next month or so from there. We have to be picking up points in those games.
I agree.
We just have to.
Yeah, we do. All right, do you want to do a score prediction before we wrap up for Barnsley?
Yeah, I can do that. And then I've got a couple of, because I love a random stat, I've got a couple to finish on.
Yeah.
But Barnsley, I'm going to go 3-1.
Good. I like that scoreline. I think we might just not even concede, actually. I was thinking 3 or 4-0.
Nice.
All right, hit us with the random stats.
Random stats. One not so good one and one quite interesting one. The not so good one, which people have probably seen, is Van Hecke's own goal was the 20th own goal that we've scored since we got promoted to the Premier League.
Ouch.
Which is comfortably more than any team during that period. Which is, I mean, some of those have been, you know, Lewis Dunk went through that classic period where every time he threw himself in front of a shot, it seemed to end up somehow being an own goal, contriving to end up in the back of the net. So some of them have been remarkably unlucky, but still, it's not a stat that you want to have. The random one, which kudos to Jack Albion, who told me this one, is Archie Gray coming on yesterday for Spurs.
Yep.
Was the fourth game in a row that James Milner has played against the son of a teammate.
That is a superb stat,
isn't it? And I had to check. It's going back to the Oxford game. It started in the Oxford game, which was Stanley Mills, who is obviously Danny Mills' son from Leeds. You then had Manchester City, which was obviously Haaland, whose dad he played with. You've then got Bournemouth, which was Justin Kluivert, who he played with at Newcastle, I'm guessing. And then
of course, Patrick.
And then yesterday you had Archie Gray, whose dad was Andy Gray, not the Sky Sports Andy Gray, the ex-Leeds Andy Gray. So yeah, 4 in a row, it's a wild stat, really. I'm quite a fan of it.
It genuinely is. I mean, is there anyone that can be on the list for like the next 2 fixtures? Like, is there anyone?
I haven't looked at it. I'd imagine not. I mean, I don't think there's any more in the run of like the season. I'm trying to think if there's any more sort of father and sons. I don't think so. I think we've just had a terrific run of them, really. I've been racking my brain since I saw it to see if there's anybody else. Yeah, I mean, I guess we've got the only other random one. Obviously we've got two of Rio Ferdinand's sons in our own academy, and presumably, I think, would they have been teammates at Leeds? I don't know, but either or, that's about as close to it as I can get.
Yeah, I was going to say
it's a hell of a stat.
Because you just he's got the longevity of James Milner is you just don't even know, do you? Like, he really could have played with just about anybody anymore.
Yeah, it really could have done, but it's a satisfying one to finish with, I think.
It also makes me horrendously feel old as well. So thanks for that final, what do you call it? Some kind of crisis, midlife crisis, whatever. Thanks. I just feel incredibly old now, knowing that there's all young kids coming through. And Milner is basically not much more older than me, really, is he? He's only.
I was going to say, how do you think he feels? Like, that's not going to be great, is it?
No, his footballing mortality must feel close to home because he's. But all that to be said, I hope he starts against Barnsley because I think he's been almost like a new signing this season, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Which is so weird.
Really has been. Yeah, really has been.
All right, I think we're done. I think we're going to wrap up. And my missus is trying to shoot things at me. She can't do it. The celebration shoot off. She wanted to shoot off.
The little party poppers.
Hold firm, twist base. Twist the base to release a shower of confetti.
Excellent.
Happy episode 300, everybody. It's a shame we couldn't celebrate with a win, but we'll celebrate with a draw and a nice 2-hour trip to Barnsley on the weekend. Have a wonderful rest of your week. We probably won't be on. That was so loud. I get it. Like, it's absolutely giving me like chills shot through my headphones. We will be back. Not Tuesday. I don't think we'll be doing an episode after Tuesday because I'll be there, and I'm sure everybody's got stuff going on. But we will be back next weekend to talk Chelsea, to talk Barnsley, and to talk what is the end of an incredibly brutal run of games, and hopefully the light at the end of the tunnel where we can start getting some identity together and see what this team can do.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody.